Image-to-Image is one of the most powerful tools in Stable Diffusion, allowing you to generate images from both reference photos and prompts, alongside image editing through in-painting. But does that all sound very confusing? Well, don't worry, because I'll be breaking down everything within Image-to-Image, so you can spend less time reading and more time creating. Some of the concepts were covered in my text-to-image video, so do check that out. But like the video first, and then I'll give it to you bite-sized. So I'm going to start at the image section because this feature is the biggest difference between text-to-image and image-to-image. And what this section allows you to do is upload a reference image, which you will then use in combination with optional prompts to make new images. We'll cover the sliders that give you more control over what influences the final image later. But for now, if we just drag and drop your desired image into the image section, make the resolution portrait, and set the denoising strength to 0.6, and then hit generate, you can see that it tries to use the reference photo to generate something similar. Prompt in this instance is where you will enter the text that will guide how the reference photo you provided changes to match your desired final image. It's where we provide additional context for Stable Diffusion to understand what we want by combining our text prompt with our visual image. For example, if I take our model and type in portrait shot, beautiful woman, diamond crown, purple robe, insanely detailed, then Stable Diffusion will combine that prompt with our image to generate something that combines both. Negative prompt will tell Stable Diffusion what to avoid in our generated image, and works with our reference photo to make something original. This can be a hit or miss, but it's good for improving anatomy or quality issues, while our prompt section can emphasize the things we actually want with different degrees of weighting. For example, if I use my previous prompt and seed but add in worst quality, low quality, 1.4, then we will get a different result, which will attempt to avoid a low quality image. And this is reinforced by our insanely detailed prompt. Interrogate Clip is a powerful tool which will take your given image and suggest a series of prompts that will attempt to replicate the image you've provided. So let's say we're not sure how to describe this model. Well, we can just click Interrogate Clip, and this might take a long time to run. For me, it took about 10 minutes, so go run some errands in the meantime. And once the hamsters have finished running, you will get a series of prompts which, when used in practice, should give us a similar result to the image we provided. But of course, this won't be an exact match all the time, as other factors like the checkpoint you are using and whether the context of the image was understood will all factor into the final result. Deep Booru is similar to Interrogate Clip, but this will attempt to generate a series of prompts from an image based on Booru tags. Booru is an image board for art, mostly leaning towards anime, gaming, and some non-safe for work material. But this database for images is often used to train checkpoints, and therefore Stable Diffusion can check it to see whether an image you provide can be broken down, using the tags from that website. You can see that it tries to break down the image into what it thinks the correct prompts are, but as we're using a photo and Booru is 2D, this works better on fictional pictures and paintings. Copy Image To provides us with a list of locations we can send our reference image to, such as Sketch, In-Paint, and even In-Paint Sketch. Let's take a moment to look at these tabs, as we have some very useful features which you will want to know about. Sketch will allow you to draw on your provided reference image and then use those adjustments to influence our generated image. This may be useful for changing the colors of items or roughly adding in different items, which you could then describe in your prompt. As an example, if I draw an apple into this photo, we should see that apple added in some variations depending on our denoising strength. But if we now add apple to our prompt, we will get a much stronger and more consistent result being driven by both our image and then reinforced by our prompt. In-Paint is one of the most powerful tools in Stable Diffusion, as this will allow you to mask a portion of your image and use your prompts to generate a new image in that specific masked location. This can be useful for adding details to eyes, fixing fingers, or even replacing whole objects in an image without affecting the rest of the image. Something I need to make clear, as I learned this the hard way, is that your prompt needs to specify what you want in your mask section when in-painting, rather than the content of the entire image. And I'll demonstrate why this is important by looking at the mask modes later on. Under In-Paint, you will find some additional options unique to this section of Stable Diffusion, so let's quickly cover these while we're here. Mask Blur will apply a Gaussian blur to the edges of the mask, allowing Stable Diffusion to blend the masked image with the rest of the unmasked portions. You can see in this image, where I've prompted a clown nose, that I've added a variety of blur values so we can see the impact from a sharp addition of the nose to a blurry fade that helps it blend in. And at super high values, the nose is barely visible at all. In-paint masked will ensure that only the masked portion of the image is filled with the newly generated content. For example, if I type in Michael Jackson face, we'll get his face within our masked section. In-paint not masked will ensure that only the unmasked portions of your image are filled with the newly generated content. So if I use the same prompt for Michael Jackson face, but select in-paint not masked, then everything outside of our mask will be filled with whatever this is supposed to be. Fill is probably the option you're looking for when it comes to in-painting. And what this will do is fill the masked portion of a blurred version of your image with your desired prompt, which leaves some room for Stable Diffusion to interpret the details. You can see the difference between us using the full prompt for the image versus a specific prompt for what we want in their masked area when using in-paint. Original will fill in the masked portion with content based on the original content of the section to be altered. This is another good option to use, but the outputs will depend on your setup. You can see the difference between us using the full prompt for the image versus a specific prompt for what we want in the masked area when using in-paint. Latent noise will fill the mask space with random noise, which is super confusing even for me, and probably isn't something you would use unless you know it's what you want. You can see the difference between us using the full prompt for the image versus a specific prompt for what we want in the masked area when using in-paint, and the results are, in my opinion, worse than either fill or original. Latent nothing will fill the mask space without noise, and this is another sketchy option which, despite its decent results, you're most likely going to want fill or original. You can see the difference between us using the full prompt for the image versus a specific prompt for what we want in the masked area when using in-paint. Only masked padding pixel determines how much of the area around the masked area should be used to generate the new image, to help blend both the surrounding area and the image within the mask. In-paint area allows you to specify the resolution of content that goes into the masked portions of your image. This is because when you fill a masked area with content, the resolution of the new content is based on the width and height you chose for the entire image. By selecting whole picture, you can ensure that the resolution for the masked area is in line with the rest of the image. But by choosing only masked, you can ensure that the resolution you choose only applies to that masked portion, which can help you get more detailed results on low detail portions of your image. In-paint Sketch gives you access to all of the features of in-paint, but with the added ability to include colors, which can help Stable Diffusion understand an object much better by recognizing both the color, shape, and description of the mask. Here we can see a few examples of this in action with different levels of denoising strength, so you can see the impacts in action. In-paint Upload allows you to use your own custom mask for your reference image, which is more powerful than in-paint, as you get access to the same features, but you can create a custom masks in an image editor that's much more accurate, sharp, and non-destructible. In these examples, you can see how our prompt is generating a different image within the confines of the white masked area. And this is great for adjusting specific areas of an image or an image as a whole. Batch is used for generating multiple images at once by specifying an input directory where your reference photos are located, an output directory which is where the generated images will go, and you can even reference the location of a batch mask. The ControlNet input directory is a way to batch generate images with a ControlNet mask by supplying the location of the mask you want to use, ensuring ControlNet is enabled, and selecting then the appropriate option that corresponds to the mask you are using. Here are some example images which demonstrate the results of both the masking and the normal map from ControlNet. Also, make sure related files have the same name, so Stable Diffusion knows which files are related when running the batch. Just Resize will ensure that your generated image fits within the specified resolution. Crop and Resize will ensure that your generated image fits within the specified resolution, even if it has to crop certain portions. Resize and Fill will ensure that your entire generated image fits within the specified resolution, even if it has to fill in empty space. Just Resize, Latent Upscale, is the same as Just Resize, but this doesn't use one of Stable Diffusion's upscale models, and instead uses encoders and latent space, which is all too complicated considering we just want to generate some art. Sampling method is an algorithm used for denoising an image, or in plain terms, Stable Diffusion correcting its mistakes by generating new samples of the image in steps and giving you a cleaner image the more steps you have. There's a lot of sampling methods to go through, and most of them are preference, but DPM++ SDE Keras EULA_A and DDIM are popular choices. Sampling steps are the number of times the sampling method will produce an improved image, and the higher this value, the cleaner the final result, and the lower the value, the more noisy the final result. Restore faces can improve faces in generated images that have been distorted or messed up by Stable Diffusion. It's controversial because it can produce worse results depending on the checkpoint you are using, being better suited for realistic ones. You may want to consider inpainting as a more reliable method for fixing faces, eyes, fingers, and other artifacts. Tiling is used to ensure that images can be tiled, or in plain English, to ensure that generated images can be placed next to one another seamlessly. You can use this in Image-to-Image to turn a picture of a brick wall into a seamless brick wall texture. And if you get strange artifacts when using this, try it on a different checkpoint. Resize To lets us choose the size we want our generated image to be by specifying a width and height value, and Resize By lets us choose our resolution via a multiplier, which multiplies the original size of the image by our specified number. Batch count determines the number of batches of images you will generate by multiplying the batch count by the batch size. Batch size determines the size of each batch, or how many images we want to generate per batch count. So a batch count of 2 and a batch size of 3 will give you 6 really horrific images. CFG scale and denoising strength are probably the two sliders you will need to focus on when trying to get the perfect image. CFG scale will determine how closely your newly generated image is to your prompt, or how much influence your prompt has over the final result. The denoising strength determines how much influence the reference image you provided has over the final generated image. By combining these two sliders together, you can decide whether your final image is closer to your original or closer to your prompt. The seed is the unique identifier for an image you generate based on the settings you use, and using the same seed with the same settings will result in the same image. If you change certain settings like the resolution, then that will change the image you get with the same seed. But it's a useful way to drive consistency in images you make once you decide on the type of settings you want. On the topic of seeds, this dice icon will set your seed to -1, which is a value that will generate a random seed each time you generate an image. The green recycle option will reuse the seed from the last generated image, which is super useful for when you want to generate a similar image to the one you just made and need to grab the seed without delving into the file's name. There are also some extra options under the seed, which I'll explain. Variation seed attempts to combine the image generated from that seed with the currently selected seed for a blended image. Variation strength controls how strong the blending is, with a low value giving you the image from your selected seed and a higher value mixing in more of the variation seed. Changing an image's size will change the variation of the image generated, even if the seed is the same. Using Resize Seed From will allow you to use an image's height and width as the seed, so you can maintain a similar composition to what you like, even if you change the overall resolution of the image. Stable Diffusion also allows you to utilize custom scripts and comes with a few installed right off the beat. If you want me to explore this, then let me know, but one I recently started using is the XYZ plot, which allows you to see the impact of various settings on your generated images and make the kind of comparisons I've been making in this video. The Generate button gives you this blue arrow icon will read and apply the prompts and settings from your last generated image, providing the prompt box is clear of any text. This can also apply the copied generation data from another image into the appropriate fields. The bin icon will delete both your prompts and negative prompts from the text box. The red picture icon will show or hide your extra textual inversions, hypernetworks, checkpoints, and LoRa's, so you can easily access them within the same window. Think of these as add-ons which you can install and then use from this window. The floppy disk icon allows you to save your prompts to a style section, which can then be loaded later on. The Notepad icon allows you to load prompts from your saved styles and apply them to both the prompt and negative prompt sections. The blue rotation icon will refresh the styles list and update the ones that are missing. The folder icon will open the file directory where the generated image is saved, and this saved location will differ depending on whether you're using text to image, image to image, etc. The Save button will save both your generated image and a CSV file containing the generation data, so you can quickly have a record of your image and its associated details archived for future use. The Zip button will do the same thing as Save, except your images will also be stored in a zip file, and you will of course get a CSV file containing the generation data. Send to Image, in Paint or Extras will take your selected generated image and send it to either of those tabs for further editing. You can also manually drag and drop the image into those tabs, But this is just a quicker option for sending the image directly for processing. But I hope you found that helpful. And if I've missed anything, then please do let me know, and I'll look to improve the video in future. Also, consider subscribing to the channel and Patreon in the description, and of course leave a like. This is Bite-Sized Genius, and I hope you enjoyed.